Welcome to another DragonLance Saga Order of Ascetics news episode. It is Bakukal New Cult the 16th. My name is Adam, and today I was sifting through the Icona Chronos and I came across some interesting news. Not Dragonlance news, but there is no Dragonlance news. So I decided to fill in with some other stuff ranging from Dungeons and Dragons to other TTRPGs to some offerings on some interesting TTRPGs that I think might be of interest or value to all of you. All right, so let's get into it. But before we actually get into it, let's take a look at, that's right, the contributor page on my website, dlsaga.com. The anthology. Now you've got a month and a half to come up with a short story. And if you want details about what needs to, the sort of the mechanics of the story, how many words or how long it's supposed to be or what you're supposed to be talking about or the file format or font size and type and all that good stuff. All of that is in here on this page, dlsaga.com/contributors. Again, March 1st is the date that I will be needing it in my inbox so that I can approve or deny. If you want me to save space for you, I have the intent to submit submission form. And you can fill that out and shoot it off to me so that I know it's coming, so that I'll save some space. What I want to make sure I do is, one, have actual stories that I can share with other people. But two, make sure that, if you're going to be contributing, that there is actually space for you. So please let me know ahead of time if you're planning on it. And then, of course, we'll sort of play it by ear. If I'm going to have the date of extension be a little bit after that or a little bit before. It really depends on the amount of submissions and the length of those submissions. I know one I've already received is really, really long. And so I've got to see if there's going to be any room for that or not, or if I'm going to have to kick it back and ask them to refine it down a little bit tighter. But some of the other ones I've received are a lot of fun, really good. And I'm really stoked about the story that I've put together. So I'm hoping that I'm going to hear from a lot of you. All right. Another thing I wanted to talk about, which I talked about last week as well, is member and patron benefits. For those of you who are not yet members, or perhaps you're a new member, I just wanted to make sure that it's clear what you do and you get access to and stuff like that. So first and foremost, there's weekly readings and monthly downloads that you have access to. So if there's any questions about any of those, feel free to shoot me an email at info@dlsaga.com. And I will respond to you at my earliest convenience, which is generally pretty quickly. And, we can have a back and forth about it. If there's something that you missed in the past, I can send you access to it now. But again, weekly readings are regular. And then, of course, monthly downloads are regular, going back a couple years. So there's a whole lot of content that you have access to. There's also a Discord that I have for this channel. I use it for live streams and I use it for sharing information and talking about games and stuff. You have access to that. And there's actually patron and member areas specific. So if you ever wanted to get on Discord, follow the link through. And then, of course, as long as your YouTube and Patreon account are connected, then you'll have access to all of those sections as well. There's also discount on merchandise, DL Saga merchandise, whether it's t-shirts or mugs or stickers or whatever. You have set discounts for all of that stuff as being a member. And then, of course, lastly, I just started a StartPlaying.Games GM profile, and I've set up a number of different games that I'm going to be running. So if you're interested, I'm actually, for patrons that are the... what is the tier? It's the highest tier. It's the developer patron tier. I'm giving 2 free game sessions every month. And if you think about how often you play in a month, that could be you just playing in a whole campaign for free, whereas the other people joining in may not get that benefit. So it's just a way of me thanking the developer patrons and giving you a little extra added bonus that other people don't have access to. All right, so that's kind of it. Let's talk about our first article for today that I found. Why one-shot tabletop RPGs should start full throttle. An argument for skipping all the setup and jumping straight into the action. Okay, so you're tied to a chair outside a rundown trailer, the game master told me. The woman standing in front of you punches you in the face. Where is it? She screams. You're going to tell me, or I'm going to hack pieces off you until you do. I blinked. I'd been handed a character sheet just 20 minutes earlier. The only thing I knew was that I was the leader of a biker gang. There had been no lead up, no introduction to the world of this tabletop RPG. I didn't know who this screaming woman was, how I'd ended up trapped in her trailer, or even whether I had information she was trying to beat out of me. And I loved it. I wasn't used to getting thrown straight into the deep end this way, not even at the kinds of indie RPG one-shot showcases I've been frequenting, where weird formats and radical narrative experiments were norm. Being introduced to a story that was already well underway and facing a dangerous situation with a lot of unknowns was exciting. Startling challenge that I still remembered more than a decade later with a long after most of the other details of that one shot have faded. That cold open pushed me out of my comfort zone, started the game with a bang, and instantly focused the attention of everyone at the table. Suddenly, we weren't a bunch of strangers trying to figure out how we wanted to approach this game. We were a team dealing with an urgent, immediate life or death problem. Tabletop RPG narratives that start in the midst of the action are pretty atypical. The published D&D campaign I've played or run tend to open with low-stakes scenarios that acclimate characters to a setting or situation. Most of the non-D&D campaigns I've played or run over the years start with some form of slow-burning relationship building, akin to what Critical Role's Campaign 4 did at launch, with a lot of lore and characters figuring out what their motivations and connections are. Now, I'm often drawn to collaborative storytelling games like Dialect or The Quiet Year, which focus as much on collective world construction as they do on actual playtime. My favorite horror game to run is Dread, which starts with players filling out questionnaires to define their characters, often a lengthy thought-writing process before anything else happens. But as much as I like the character first or shared world building style of play, there's a real thrill to games designed to thrust you right into the middle of a high stakes, intense scenario. Games that skip all of the cautious party planning and pondering, the negotiation and debates and anticipation, and get straight into the moment where important decisions have to be made fast. Lady Blackbird, the all-time great pick-up-and-play game by Blades in the Dark designer John Harper, is one of my all-time favorites. It's expressively designed for urgent, immediate story action. The pre-gen characters, instantly recognizable iconic space fantasy hero types, inspired by a mashup of Star Wars and Firefly, start out captured by evil Imperial forces and then have to use their wits and skills to escape the Imperial cruiser Hand of Sorrow. The system is intuitive and designed for easy understanding and a low barrier to action. But the way to story starts with the characters already deep in lore with a clear goal, puts Lady Blackbird among the best one-shots I've encountered. I'm guessing Harper likes in medias res games in general. His one-shot scenario Magister lore similarly begins in the moment after a vengeful apprentice releases a bound demon. And Blades in the Dark is a heist-driven game designed so players can act fast, then justify their actions by revealing their planning afterward. Games inspired by Harper's work often share this element. Will Hindermark's Always Never Now is a cyberpunk reimagining of Lady Blackbird that opens with the characters arriving at a crucial server facility that holds information they need, but they're immediately forced into combat against the data thieves that are ransacking it. Another longtime favorite act fast and figure out the world around you RPG is Miguel's Baker's Run, a simple, infinitely reskinnable game built around a basic framework. The PCs have amnesia, superpowers, and powerful enemies chasing them. I've run Run as a Fae-centric fantasy game, a cyberpunk story, an X-Men-esque mutant superhero story, and more. But no matter how you flavor it, the game begins with a dramatic destructive event called a crash that frees the players, runners, from their former captors, chasers, and launches their escape while they're being pursued. The game text begins in suitably dramatic form. It started with the smell of melting plastic. The angles are all wrong. And then there are sounds of pain, human and machine. The taste of adrenaline coats your tongue. Get out! Get out! Run! Amnesia scenarios, where players have to figure out their identities, the world, and their predicament within it, are great pretexts for the kind of action-first games. But amnesia isn't a necessary part of the story. It's often enough just to have a relatively simple, straightforward scenario everyone can immediately follow. Just look at Grant Howitt's horror action game Eat the Reich, where players start as a group of vampire commando stealth dropped out of a plane and into occupied Paris during World War II with the goal of drinking all of Adolf Hitler's blood. Howitt is another game designer who specializes in these in media res scenarios. My personal favorite of this is Death Was the Only Road Out of Town, where the PCs are noir anti-heroes in a dark, corrupted city, but they're aware that they're inside a dream that someone else is having. A series of dice charts generates the scenario so players can launch right into the scenario that will lead them to confront and, if possible, kill whoever trapped them in the dream. There's no reason Pathfinder or Dungeons & Dragons stories can't start in the middle of the action either, especially if players are bringing in characters they've already played, or the story starts in a familiar setting that doesn't need built-up or acclamation. The flexible fan-favorite adventure Clause for Concern starts with a group of Santa's elves crash-landing a sleigh anywhere the GM wants as they seek help with the North Pole invasion. The World Wound Incursion, the first adventure in Pathfinder's Wrath of the Righteous Arc, opens with a demonic incursion tearing open a hole in the city of Kennebrez, sending the PCs plummeting into the underworld. The 5e adventure, Horde of the Dragon Queen, similarly begins with PCs walking into a town that's under attack by a dragon and a small army of cultists, bandits, and mercenaries, stealing everything that they can grab to present to their queen Tiamat. This style of tabletop storytelling does have its downsides, however. Even more than most RPGs, they require a confident, well-prepared GM who's good at rolling with unexpected player decisions and filling in the gaps for confused or hesitant players on the fly. Players who prefer collaborative world building or who get anxious if they feel rushed into decisions or put on the spot may feel shut out by this style of play. And action-first games often aren't great for character-first experiences, unless everyone embraces the idea that their characters are either in stressful situation that will let them connect with each other quickly, or that they have established shared history that they can create after the fact. Games like Lady Blackbird and Cyrun have flashback mechanics built in for this kind of retroactive character construction. Such an approach can prove divisive. I'm currently playing a Star Wars Edge of the Empire campaign where the GM loves to start sessions mid-combat, then justify the decisions that brought the players into that situation after the fact. That approach skips a lot of where do we go, what do we do next discussions that can eat up playtime given the size of our sandbox galaxy and the wealth of options in front of us, but it also steals some of our agency. In that one-shot where I started the game tied to a chair getting shaken down for information, I had to immediately wonder, is the character I'm playing stupid or careless? How did he get himself into this situation? But if your play group is anything like mine, or like a lot of the players I've encountered at pickup game nights or convention nights, one of the more challenging aspects of one-shot RPGs can be getting to the exciting part of the story. Sometimes players want to overthink their plans before making risky moves, gaming out every possible scenario in advance. Sometimes the path to an important confrontation isn't entirely clear. Players might even be hesitant to get involved in an obviously dangerous situation, either out of an abundance of caution or because they're player characters who wouldn't charge into danger. Often those players want to be pushed into danger anyway for comedic or dramatic reasons, but they won't take the leap on their own. And sometimes, especially as a GM, you just have limited time for play sessions, so you want to skip the preliminaries and jump straight into a key moment in the story. Cutting straight to the chase, literally, if you cold open action scenario as the chase scene, is a lot like eating dessert before dinner. It can be self-indulgent, and it isn't necessarily the right choice for every meal or every dinner, but it can be a lot of fun for a once-in-a-while treat. All right, so I love this because this is actually what West End Games' Star Wars The Role-Playing Game originally told GMs to do, is that it's a dramatic space fantasy adventure, Star Wars, that is supposed to be action-oriented. You're in a rebellion against an empire. Let's just cut to the action and deal with it, because everyone already knows the setup of Star Wars, so why not just dive right into it? So whether you start jumping in already at the very beginning of combat or in the middle of a combat scenario, everyone's already bought into the whole premise. And I would argue this is probably the best way to start a one-shot. Because again, one-shots have a limited amount of time. Most sessions last only from 2 to 4 hours. Some of them go a little bit over. Some of them might go a little bit under, depending on the individual's playing personal time. And the reality is you may not be able to get to the conclusion of the story if everyone is just sort of pontificating and going off on their own and doing their own things. You start right in the middle of it, and everyone is on task, focusing on what is actively happening around them, eliminating all of the hem-haws and discussions and debates. I think it's a fantastic way to run one-shots. And I think we should be running more one-shots rather than trying to focus on campaigns. I mean, you can do a whole campaign of a single character that's just in a series of one-shots. If you think of your campaign in a long-form concept as a series of one-shots that fold into the campaign, it actually might make the player experience infinitely more enjoyable. And running those backstories, you can have a one-shot where you're just thrown right into the action, and that's the one-shot. And then the next game session is another one-shot that's all backstory that led up to that one-shot. And then the next one is a sequel to that one-shot that explains, well, what happens next? And you can play with the time in this very interesting way, and it keeps the story fresh because you're uncovering layers of it all the time. People are not bored of the linear A to B to C process because you're jumping them around intentionally, keeping them on their toes, keeping them engaged. I mean, it might be a really fantastic way of running an actual campaign. And this is actually exactly what I do with my campaigns that I run online, whether it was Shadow of the Dragon Queen or whether it's Tyranny of Dragons that I'm running right now on this channel, where if we don't have all the players there, sometimes I'll just run a one-shot that explores one or more of their backstories or thrust in off-brand story events that are germane to the characters and their story as it is unfolding. And that helps develop out the player characters throughout the course of the campaign. Yes, it does tend to make the campaign longer, but it means that the characters are more invested, especially in those times where it's long travel periods and they just get bored of that travel, forcing to spend months at a time on, in a caravan, for example. So it's really pretty interesting. Let me just give a quick shout out. Jay Zilla, thanks. Welcome, Dragon High Lord. Thanks for becoming a member. Right on the futon. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you. Chemish Abomination. Nice name. And thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. All right. So what do you guys think? Do you run one-shots? Do you feel like there should be more one-shots? And when you do run a one-shot, do you throw people right into the action, or do you let them sort of hem and haw for an hour or so before the action kicks off? And then if you're a player, what do you prefer? Let me know in the comments. Love to hear what you have to say. All right, so the second article I wanted to talk about is Tales from Woodcreek is the most watchable D&D show that not enough people are watching. Let's find out why, shall we? And see if we agree or not. There's a weird unspoken law on the internet that says if you mention Dungeons & Dragons shows, you must immediately bow in the direction of Critical Role. And look, I get it. They earned that throne. Incredible players, deep lore, emotional arcs, Matthew Mercer, Ashley Johnson, it's all there. But here's the thing I haven't been able to fully articulate until now. Watching Critical Role often feels like sitting on a couch at someone else's house, politely observing their game night. I'm engaged, sure, but I'm also very aware that I'm just there. I could close my eyes, switch tabs, and nothing about the experience would fundamentally change. It's more podcast than spectacle. And that is where Tales from Woodcreek quietly walks in and flips the table, gently with intent. D&D is imagination powered. That is, its magic and its curse. The Dungeon Master describes the room, the smells, the flickering candles, the ominous knocking. The players imagine. The audience imagines harder. Some shows manage to solve this by throwing money and animation at it. Harmon Quest worked because Dan Harmon could literally animate his brain. Son of a Dungeon worked because Corridor Crew knows how to bend reality with VFX. But what if all you have is a room? Well, you call Deborah Ann Woll and let her work her magic. Tales from Woodcreek does not ask the audience to imagine the world right away. It starts in the room the players are sitting in, which is set up like a full-blown escape room, packed with clues, riddles, hidden objects, and deliberate set dressing. All the audience has to do is imagine that this room exists inside an old haunted village. From there, the show becomes a clever dance between role-playing and physically solving the space. Instead of a DM saying, "You hear a knock behind you," an actual knock comes from somewhere in the room, startling both the players and the audience. If a player wants to investigate, they roll for perception, because this is still D&D. Roll high enough, and they're allowed to search. Roll a natural 20, and Deborah Ann Woll will literally point at the exact clue waiting to be found. Combat happens in the room as well. When a ghost appears, players can look around, point to real furniture, and describe their actions in physical space. I climbed this chair. I jumped from here. I attacked from this corner. You're essentially watching an escape room become a Dungeons & Dragons campaign in real time. This is not just clever production, it's immersive engineering. What makes Tales from Woodcreek special is not just the mechanics, it's how welcoming it is. In the first 2 episodes alone, they even bring in Ilman Valini, Miss Marvel herself, who very clearly has never roleplayed a D20 in her life, and she jumps in without friction. You do not need encyclopedic knowledge of spells, subclasses, or lore to follow along or to play. That is kind of the point. This is a show you can binge without committing your soul to a 400-hour saga. Season 1 is complete. You can watch it on YouTube, start to finish. No homework required. And Deborah Ann Woll, absolute force of nature. She is confident, inventive, playful, and terrifying in the exact way a great DM should be. You feel safe in her hands, even when she's actively running the players' lives. Season 2 is on its way, with the Kickstarter coming up. And honestly, this is the kind of project that deserves to blow past its goal. If you love D&D, if you love watching great players, if you have always wanted something that hits like Critical Role but moves like television instead of radio, do not miss this. Some shows are content. This one is an experience. And you can start it right here, and it has a link right to the first episode. I'm always interested in stuff like this that tries to reinvent the actual play space, because what people tend to try to do, and I run actual play games on this and other channels, and so I have a little bit of experience with this, though mine are nowhere near as popular as any of the other ones you ever watch online. What people try to do is have the best production quality that they can afford with the technology that they're using, and tell as engaging a story as they can with the other players. If they're played actors, you're going to get a better result than if they're just friends sitting around a virtual table. That's just reality. And depending on the friends sitting around the virtual table's individual setups, the production quality is greater or less than each other and other shows. But you're always limited to the technology, and you're always limited to the creativity of the individuals at the table. That's what's so fascinating about it, is that you're actually watching people live, at least in the case of my shows, react live to what is happening at the table. Sometimes it's crazy and they can't believe it, and real, true emotions are brought up. Sometimes it's kind of dull and it's not as exciting, and role-playing goes a little bit long. But that's what real games are like when you're sitting around a table with friends, is you never really know where it's going to land on any given day, and that's kind of the magic of actual play. With this particular take, Tales from Woodcreek, it is very much an interesting premise where it's mixing the idea of you're not only watching an actual play, but they're actually in the room reacting to the room rather than just staring at a camera and rolling dice. And I like the idea of the physicality of exploring a space while you're telling a story. It sort of blends that whole idea of LARPing and role-playing. And while I laugh my ass off at LARPers in general, because I think it is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my entire life, I like the concept of it. I really do. I could never personally do it because I feel stupid enough in some cases just doing what I do. But, and so I could just never walk out into a park and start throwing beanbags at someone shouting lightning bolt. That's just beyond my, my comfort zone. But for for people who are willing to do it, who have production value behind them, who are trained actors, it can make for a very engaging and entertaining show. So this is something that I'll probably check out. And I don't watch actual plays. I don't watch sports in general. I like to play sports. I don't like watching actual plays. I like to run them and be a part of them. You know, I like to actually be a part of the thing rather than watch the thing. But this is a weird, interesting mix that I think I might be interested in checking out. So let me know what you guys think. Is this something where you're interested because of the physicality and the exploration of the environment? Or is it just a trite trick to get people to tune in, trying to break down and reinvent the actual play space that's already on its own downward spiral? Let me know what you think. I'd be interested. And if you watch any actual plays, let me know what they are, because I may not be aware of them and I might want to check them out, or other people watching this at some point may also not be aware and want to check them out. So leave them in the comments if you got a chance. Chris, what's up? Awesome to see new Dragon High Lord. Yeah, I agree. All those lances around. All right, so. Yeah, and I don't kink shame, man. I say kink shame, but I don't think playing D&D or LARPing is kink. Though some people take it that space. But just the idea of, you know, if you do a thing, like, it's your hobby. I'm not going to act like your hobby is any worse or better than my hobby. That's stupid. You know, enjoy the way you play in the games you play, full stop. And who cares what anyone else thinks, myself included. All right, let's do the next one here. We're going Alien, the role-playing game. This is one I've wanted to check out, and for some reason, I just haven't. And I don't know why. Probably because I don't have enough time and I don't have anyone else that I can just grab and start playing a game with. The Evolved edition of Alien, the role-playing game adds even more to an already great TTRPG. At this point, it feels like so many franchises have an official tabletop role-playing game. The Walking Dead, Hellboy, Blade Runner, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and even Monty Python all have licensed games based on their universes, and that's just off the top of my head. Frankly, I've never really been super drawn to this, as most of the time, part of what brings me to a franchise is seeing an authored take from another perspective play out in front of me. The one exception has been Alien, the role-playing game. There's something about the Alien universe that grabs me, gets my mind racing with all the tales of body horror and corporate greed that can be told using the themes and concepts laid out in the franchise over the last 46 years. The original version of Alien RPG was released in 2019, and along with the Building Better Worlds campaign book, has won 3 ENnie awards, including the 2020 Gold ENnie for Best Game. Now, after years of feedback, Free League Publishing has released an updated Evolved edition of the rule set with new features, revised rules, and a revamped layout. As a fan of the original system, I was eager to see how this new version improved upon the great foundation of the previous iteration. I think this is the reason why I haven't bought it. Because I was waiting for the Evolved edition to come out. Because by the time I had heard about Alien, the role-playing game, they already announced that there's going to be a new edition coming out. And I don't want to buy an old edition when everyone else is playing a new edition. You know what I mean? It's just like wasting money. Why not just wait for the new one and then play what everyone's playing? The first thing that's apparent when looking at them side by side is the new graphic design. While I first enjoyed the aesthetics of the original, which used all black pages with green and white color schemes to present the information, the new version is much clearer, featuring white pages and black text with pops of green. The Evolved edition is actually shorter, 312 pages versus the original's 385, but this comes from a well-thought-out reorganization that flows better. The art, which is a bit more sparse than I would like it to be, has a sharp style, looking almost like concept art painting of alien films. The core the core dice resolution mechanic, which is the beating heart of the game, is very slightly changed, maintaining the same great risk reward of the first edition. Anytime you make a check in the game, you roll a number of d6s based on a skill and its associated attribute. You know what that sounds like? Star Wars the role-playing game from West End Games. If you get a 6 on any die, the roll is considered a success, with any additional successes providing an extra benefit to your action. You know what that sounds like? Storyteller system from Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf, the Apocalypse, etc. Each character also has a series of talents, which start out based on your class, but can later be purchased with XP that will sometimes alter the roll in your favor. The system has two of the biggest positives for me. It's simple to understand, making it great for players new to the RPG, and you get to roll a ton of dice, which is one of the most fun feelings there is. But there's an added layer to this rolling system that is secret sauce to the tension of the game, the stress dice. If you ever want to re-roll, whether it's because you failed or because you need additional successes, you can push the roll. This also sounds very much like willpower in Vampire the Masquerade. To do so, you increase your stress level, then re-roll all dice that don't show a 6. For each level of stress you have, you add a stress die to the roll. These can count for successes, as with normal dice, but if you ever roll 1 on a stress die, you need to roll on a special table that makes you lose control in detrimental but interesting ways. The system is so clever because it encourages you to push your luck when things get hairy. The higher your stress level, the more chances you have for succeeding. But it also ups your likelihood of a stress response that could send your character spiraling out of control. Players can relieve stress if they spend time resting in a safe area, but depending on the situation, you may want to keep your stress level high to improve your chances. I love how much this mimics how people respond to danger. You may be able to pull off more improbable feats while under pressure, but it's very easy to lose your cool onto the top drop of a hat. That's very much like hunger dice from Vampire the Masquerade. Your stress level is also used when you make a panic roll, which you ask to make when something special happens narratively at a tense moment. This can be something like finding a dead body, seeing another player get critically injured, or encountering a xenomorph for the first time. Unlike the stress response roll you get from a 1 on a stress die, panic responses are generally brief but impactful. Pardon me. A lower roll on the table may just cause you to make a noise, alerting enemies nearby to your presence, but a high roll can put you into a frenzy or even leave you momentarily catatonic. The book outlines combat rules which categorize your options into full actions and quick actions. There are rules for distance, which isn't measured specifically, but rather approximately with terms like adjacent, short, medium, long, and extreme. You'll need to take into consideration concepts like cover, ammunition, and armor, but it feels slightly simplified compared to the original edition, even if it still has a few too many moving pieces for my taste. When you're brought down to 0 health, you roll on a critical injury table, which adds another problem for you to deal with once you're back in the game. Sometimes your combat won't be ground-based affair, as the game also includes how to handle ship-to-ship combat in the vacuum of space. It's a little more finicky, giving different roles for each player to perform on the ship, all of which will affect each round differently. But it's there if you want it. Personally, this isn't what I think of when I think of Alien, but I definitely understand the game being thorough enough to prepare you for the inevitability, as there are plenty of cutthroat corporations and factions that will look for any opportunity to take you out. In addition to showing you how to build human NPCs for you to fight against, there's a bestiary of various creatures for you to come against, including classic xenomorphs, Prometheus-area neomorphs, and assorted other alien life forms. There's some really neat mechanics involving with some various stages of xenomorph life cycle, including rules for being implanted by a face hugger or dealing with acid blood. This section also includes lore for the various creatures, which is interesting if a little dry. You're not always going to be in open conflict with your enemies. In fact, you'll probably spend most of your time avoiding extremely dangerous encounters, so you'll frequently be using the revamped stealth rules. Players will be moving from zone to zone across maps, taking time to search rooms and interact with terminals. While they're doing that, the GM will be secretly tracking the movement of any NPC that may be hiding or hunting in the area. There are specific rules for how you will be able to do it in each turn, which represent about 5 to 10 minutes of time. If players end up in the same zone as an enemy, there's a specific opposed check that will be made in order to dictate who is aware of who. It all feels more thought out and considered than the game's first release, allowing you to create tense situations that feel like you're playing out scenarios of the films. Yeah, I want to play this. To facilitate stealth, combat, and survival against the elements, there's a long list of equipment for players to use. Each of these has small descriptions and stat blocks that indicate their use. There's nothing super creative in here, but you've got all the hits like motion detectors, pulse rifles, and even the classic power loader. In order to empower you fully to fully portray the world, there are pages and pages of history telling the tale of the various corporations and powers of the world of Alien. Some of these descriptions are retellings of the various movies, often in the form of corporate communications or documentation. It's a lot to parse, and not all of it is particularly unique, but there's enough here to make sure you can answer any questions that your players may have about the bigger picture. The Evolved Edition now includes information from Alien Romulus, but sadly doesn't have anything from the recent Alien Earth TV series, which would have been a great new wrinkle in the added game. I agree. Alien Earth introduced some really interesting aliens species. And I mean, not xenomorph species, even though it had one, but like different aliens. And I really love that. There are two main modes that Alien allows you to use that tell different types of stories. Campaign mode is more like your traditional role-playing game structure, with players creating their characters and taking them on multi-session adventures in a sandbox world with more freeform narrative. Cinematic mode takes the mechanics of Alien and condenses it to a few sessions, casting players as pre-written characters that each have their own secret agendas that change throughout the 3 acts of the narrative. The book section on campaign play does a great job of giving you the tools needed to successfully craft a compelling ongoing story. In addition to 3 different frameworks for the campaign: space truckers, colonial marines, or frontier colonists. There are tables for everything from campaign hooks to job generation to planet creation, making it easy to get the ball rolling. The book even lays out a fully developed Tartarus sector with its own history and story ideas for the series of planets contained within. If you want to play cinematic mode, Free League has released a scenario called Rapture Protocol that can be purchased separately from the core rulebook. It lays out a great little 3-session adventure that sends you on a resupply mission to an industrial colony where you quickly discover a dangerous conflict for control of the station. Not only is the narrative a strong one with twists and turns for you to as you explore, but it's also extremely well produced with detailed maps and glossy player handouts. There's even an optional set of miniatures you can buy that feature all the characters and xenomorphs you'll run into during the adventure. Also available is the starter set, which features an abbreviated rulebook that condenses the rules into the bare minimum you need to get going. There's also a special set of dice, a supply counter, and a series of cards that help you keep track of panic responses, initiative, and various weapon stats. It also includes a brief 3-hour cinematic adventure called Hope's Last Day that chronicles the final hours of Hadley's Hope, the terraforming colony depicted in Aliens. The scenario isn't as robust as Rapture Protocol, but the starter set is great for anyone who's looking to get a good sample of what the game's all about. I might actually run that. That sounds very interesting to me. New to the Involved Edition is a mode called Last Survivor, which is a solo mode that's meant for one player to run by themselves without a GM. It's basically a series of missions, setups that you can choose from, then tables to roll that will help determine what happens as it goes on and danger increases. It's an interesting experience and feels well thought out for what it is, but the character interactions, particularly with conflicting personal goals in cinematic mode, are often what make Aliens so compelling, so I'm not sure if I'll be getting much use out of it. For the most part, the big picture structure of the game has stayed the same between the first edition and the Evolved Edition, but the specifics have changed. Since there's already a large collection of cinematic and campaign books for the original version, the new book provides you with simple guides for translating the older materials for use with the updated rules. As someone who has collected many of these scenarios, this is a welcomed addition that makes me feel better about replacing the old book. I already thought Alien the Role-Playing Game was a great package, and the new Evolved Edition makes it even better. It streamlines the rules, smoothing out the combat and making the stealth system feel more satisfying and robust. The stress system is slightly tweaked for the better, retaining the brilliant mix between mechanics and friction that makes the gameplay shine. The section on the campaign mode offers tons of options to help your players provide with endless stories of exploring the expanses of space, with cinematic mode offers a tight, fast-paced thrill ride full of death and betrayal. Along with the starter set and the Rapture Protocol, there are plenty of great ways to give this RPG system a try, making it an easy purchase for any fan of the Alien universe, regardless of their experience with tabletop role-playing games. What I liked about Alien Earth, and this is going to go to the game itself here in just a second, is that it was a bridge, in my opinion, between the Blade Runner franchise and the Alien franchise. And we know that is one cohesive universe. And so I don't know why they have different role-playing games. It really seems like there should be like one whole cinematic TTRPG that covers Ridley Scott's universe. That, in my opinion, would be the best way to approach this, because then you can deal with the early on sort of dystopian future of Blade Runner and all of their cyborgs and stuff, and synths, but you're also dealing with the same alien corporations and traversing the galaxy and space and everything, all the aliens and stuff involved in that. Alien Earth as a TV series did a great job of presenting, well, what if everything that happened up in space actually came to Earth? Like, what would that kind of look like? And while some of the story beats in the actual TV series were a little off for me personally, I still enjoyed it for what it was. And I always think of Alien as a hit and miss type storytelling franchise, where 1 and 2 are gold. 3 and I think 4 and 5, I think, not so much. And then the newer ones, I'm okay with. You know, I enjoy them. But there's some real shitty storytelling in the Alien franchise. And so I'm not going to just limit myself to the universe simply because I didn't like some expressions of it. So I would really like to include it all into one big rapid package. And if the game mechanics are sound and simple to pick up, then I would probably think about running an entire sort of campaign that combines the whole universe together, because I think it's a better storytelling experience and better immersion for players personally. But yeah, have you guys played Alien, the role-playing game? Have you played the Evolved Edition? What did you think about it? Because I'm thinking about picking up that starter set, running the solo game. I have a different YouTube channel that I run different role-playing games on called Evil Live Play. And I may do that on that. I ran a solo Call of Cthulhu game on it because they release a whole bunch of those Alone Against series. And that was a lot of fun. And I reviewed the starter set for that. So I might as well do that for Alien as well. I mean, it sounds fun. What do you guys think? Would you do it? Let me know. All right. So let's see what you guys have to say here. Maybe you're old and lame. Starborn, thanks for tuning in, by the way. You like watching the OSR live plays with hex crawl, nitty-gritty sandbox stuff, less dramatic acting, resume building for auditions, and more old-school crawling. I do like old-school gaming a lot more than modern gaming. Watching the DragonLance sessions brought back, made you remember how great it was to figure things and have rules that made things hard and weird. Yeah, for sure. You personally would rather watch a game played by friends you know than paid actors, even though they're supposed to be better players. That's interesting. Good luck listening to Elric audiobooks. Oh, nice. I don't know what Elric is, but that's awesome. All right, so I think I'm going to check this out. I wanted to before, and this actually makes me interested. I wanted to do the Dune role-playing game too, but that's more about like acquisition of resources than TTRPG like playing. And I'm not as interested in that type of a game as I am like, I have a character, I'm in the middle of shit, what happens, you know what I mean? All right, the last story I wanted to cover today was actually a deal. D&D rival Call of Cthulhu offers 94% off essential source books worth $426 in this epic bundle deal. This is another humble bundle deal for Call of Cthulhu. If you don't own Call of Cthulhu yet, you can pick it up for super cheap. Just do the least expensive option and get the core rulebook, and then just start playing it. It's not my favorite TTRPG, but I have always loved Lovecraft since I was dabbling in the occult as a little kid, reading the Necronomicon, thinking that was real. I was one of those kids, but I had so much fun, so I will never take anything back. And the Cthulhu mythos is awesome. It's a lot of fun, and storytelling is so wonderful and rich with horror and suspense and mystery. So it's definitely a game, if that type of storytelling's up your alley, definitely check this out. So, want to battle with eldritch abominations? Now's the time, as Dungeons & Dragons rival Call of Cthulhu has a major Humble Bundle sale. The new Humble Bundle dedicated to D&D competitor Call of Cthulhu offers many of the game's most essential books at a behemoth discount. 26 tabletop products are all available for $25, a 94% discount on their usual value of $426. They don't normally go on sale. I caught a Humble Bundle a year or so ago, and I was able to pick it up for inexpensive, but usually they're kind of steep in their pricing. So this is great if you have any holiday funds left over. Among these titles are Call of Cthulhu's core rulebooks and some of its best-selling source books. Basically, you've got everything you need here to start playing. For anyone who's unfamiliar with Call of Cthulhu, this is a dark Lovecraftian tabletop RPG where you solve eldritch mysteries and try to avoid the gradual unraveling of your horror-exposed mind. While D&D classics come equipped with fantastical powers and heroic sensibilities, the protagonists in Call of Cthulhu are ordinary people, albeit those a little more aware of the universe's unknowable cosmic horrors. It's a D100 system that's pretty punishing when it comes to skills and combat, but many variants of the rules adjust the scale of brutality to suit the setting and storytelling goals. Starting with the basics, the bundle offers the Investigator's Handbook and a Call of Cthulhu starter set for new players. Fresh-faced GMs can take advantage of the Keeper rulebook, a Keeper screen, and Keeper deck, as well as an extra book for Keeper tips on running games. A bestiary of mythos monsters is included, as is Pulp Cthulhu, a rules variant that's more dramatic and less deadly than the regular Cthulhu game. Several included setting guides allow you to customize your game further. Call of Cthulhu Berlin helps you set the game in Weimar, Germany, while Down Darker Trails is a Wild West setting guide. There's also Cthulhu Dark Ages for those adventurers where guns can't save you. Beyond this, the Humble Bundle is mostly stuffed with adventures. Some are solitary adventures, perfect for getting to grips with the rules, while others offer longer experiences for larger groups. Heck, there's even a Cthulhu coloring book thrown in. You can see more details on the Humble Bundle page, or if you'd like to ask us more questions. All right, so let's take a look at this, because I want to see exactly what you can get. So for $5, you get the starter set, which includes Alone Against the Flames. I have the starter set. It's great. It's a great way to break into the game. Gives you a guide to Lovecraftian horrors and 5 scenarios for beginning keepers and the coloring book. So $15 gives you the actual rule book. So the Keeper rule book is the actual game itself. So that's cool. So at $15, that's super cheap. I think that's like a third of the regular price. It's kind of expensive. And then you get some more alone scenarios and stuff, which is always great. At $25, you get the Investigator Handbook, which is a sort of like player's handbook of sorts, and Pulp Cthulhu. I haven't really looked into Pulp Cthulhu. I don't know. I like the slow building madness and horror of traditional Cthulhu storytelling, like Lovecraftian storytelling. And so I would probably want to stick with that personally. But again, I'm not a huge fan of the Call of Cthulhu game system. I would rather take a different game system and tell a Cthulhu story in it. You could do it with D&D, regardless of the edition. You could do it with any D&D clone, GURPS, basic role-playing, basic universal role-playing or whatever the other universal role-playing game systems are. I mean, all it takes is a little imagination, and you can use whatever you want to do it. You don't have to use an existing system if you don't like that system. But I'm definitely down to run a Call of Cthulhu game. And I was talking with one of the players on this channel. His name is Robert, really cool dude. He wants to do a Cthulhu game as well. And so I might have to try to put that together and see about doing that, because it could be a lot of fun, you know? Anyway, if you're interested in Cthulhu, this is the opportunity for you. Definitely check it out. There's a link in the show notes once I've published them tomorrow, or you can just search Humble Bundle Call of Cthulhu, or go to humblebundle.com and find it yourself. It's definitely worth it if it's something that you are interested in and you haven't yet checked out. Maybe it's a price point issue or just a time issue. There's a bunch of solo play games in it. So if you just can't get a group together, you can still enjoy a horror-filled, game on your own. And they're pretty fun, and they're replayable, and you can, have different outcomes each time you play it. It's very similar to like a choose your own adventure style game, very much like the old D&D ones are, where you can roll dice and stuff like that. But their intent is to teach you how to play the game system while you're doing it. So it's a really great one-on-one way of, or just one within yourself way, solo way of figuring out how to play the game without reading a manual of sorts. Even though the quick start manual or the quick start set is actually really simple. It's straightforward. All right. So that is this episode. Thank you guys so much. That's it for this OA news. Do you enjoy one-shot games? Do you enjoy watching actual plays? And finally, have you ever tried Alien or Call of Cthulhu TTRPGs? Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. It all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. And here's a genuine question for you. Are you interested in this type of a news show? If it doesn't have to do with Dragonlance, should I be covering it on this channel? Let me know, because I do have other channels that I could turn it over to if it's just not something you're interested in. But again, I've always liked the idea that Dragonlance can be played in any setting, in any genre, because it's just a great in any game system in any genre, because it's such a great campaign world that's so massive and diverse and rich that you can tell literally any type of story you want, even an eldritch horror styled story. So if you're just not into it, chime in. I don't mind. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. All right, this channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you'll join in that celebration. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.